Welcome to episode 244 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Good morning. Melissa, how's your weekend been?
It's been good. I treated myself to a lot of shopping. I got a vaporwave ceramic head back there.
There you go. I see it. It has all the flowers sticking out of it back there.
It's
That's
a vase. Cool. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got my ceramic marble looking Greco-Roman bust. The ultimate vaporwave home accessory.
Good stuff. I went bowling on Friday night, so my arm is a little bit sore because I haven't done that in forever. But that was a blast. And then last night we had some friends over for dinner, and we had a little fire pit outside, and it was good. I'm a little bit hungover this morning, but I am doing well. So it's been a good weekend indeed. What are we here to talk about this week, Melissa?
This week, we are here to talk about the 2007 American legal thriller, Michael Clayton.
Don't be hating. It's Michael Clayton.
It's been my goal to make sure that we watch a movie somewhere in our review show history. We watch a winner in every one of the Oscars categories.
Yep.
And so I pitched you 3 movies that had won for Best Supporting Actress. And you picked this one, including its performance by award-winning Tilda Swinton.
Yeah. This is a movie that I did not know existed until like a few months ago. It came out in like 2007-ish, I believe you mentioned. And at the time, a movie like this would not have caught my attention at all. Just completely not on my radar. But oddly enough, I finally figured out why, which I'll mention later on. But I didn't understand it at the time. That a number of podcasts that I listened to kept mentioning this movie over the past couple months, and like different podcasts on different subject matter just mentioned it, or it came up in conversation. And yeah, they kept saying like, oh yeah, this is a really, really good movie. Tilda Swinton won Best Supporting Actress. Check it out. And so I was like, okay, this, these were people that I respect their opinion on movies and video games and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to add this one to my list here. And then you happened to pitch it. So it was a nice, like, pleasant surprise to just be like, oh, it's Michael Clayton. Yeah, I've heard of him. So, yeah, I was excited to pick this one. And I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Yeah. I don't have many bad things to say about it. I do have a hot take, which we'll get to in the spoiler section. But yeah, I had a blast with this. I think it is paced really, really well. Yeah. I think immediately from the get-go, it's very engaging. I think it's kind of really neat to see how, like, on the edge of my seat I was through most of this, when there's really no, like, action. There is one thing that blows up, but, like, there's no big, like, action scene. There's no gunfights. There's no fist fights. It's just people talking and having conversations, and it's just the intensity and the tension in the situation that I think is so engrossing about this. And yeah, I had a blast. What did you think?
Nice. It's a very solid film. I did enjoy myself. You're right. This is mild enough in the stakes that I'm hesitant to call it a thriller.
Yeah.
It's like right on that line where a drama meets a thriller. It's not quite action packed enough. There is one car bomb and one separate murder other than that, and that's pretty much it. I it is a very personal look at Michael Clayton. This
Hmm.
is another reason I pitched this movie. This has stuck in my head. I've never seen it. I just remember the commercials. And anytime there's a movie where the title is just the character's name, it kind of sticks at me like, well, who is that character? What do they do? What makes Michael Clayton so important that the name of the movie is him?
This is like
You follow this guy.
one of the most like unoriginal titles for a movie. Just
Right.
Michael Clayton. Just, what?
It's not
What does that
it's
even
not
mean?
even a name like it's not even an exciting name like a
Not
Napoleon
at all.
Dynamite or an Austin Power.
Right? Yeah.
You get a very personal look at this guy's life in that you see him at work, you see him with his son, you see him with his brothers, you see his gambling habits, all these different parts of his life. But at the end of the day, you're still like, exactly who was Michael Clayton?
Yeah. Who is
He's kind
this
of an
guy?
enigma still at the end. Very solid. I enjoyed the turns. It's not super twisty. Like I said, this is right on the line of like thriller. There's some surprises. I don't think it's like twists, turns, shocks, but I do really like how it develops. And I think it's structurally really interesting. You get the movie starts and then flashes back to 4 days previously and contextualizes everything you've seen. There's small bits that end up becoming very important in ways you don't see coming. And I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really cool one indeed. Yeah, let's do a little plot synopsis for people who still might want to check this one out. So like
Michael Clayton.
Go ahead.
Michael Clayton, he's a fixer for a law firm, which means he has a law degree. He is a lawyer, but he's not a traditional lawyer. He just sort of goes in and fixes things. He smooths over messy situations. He classifies himself as a janitor, pretty much. And his law firm's biggest client is this big agricultural, like pesticide manufacturer who's taking on a class action lawsuit that one of their pesticides is carcinogenic. And the main lawyer who was put on that case has some mental issues and he suffers this psychological break during one of the depositions. And so Michael Clayton has to fly out to where that was in like Wisconsin and kind of smooth it out and explain like, you know, my friend here, like he's a very, very skilled lawyer. He's very dedicated to your case. He does have some issues. He's been off his medicine. We're going to put him back. You know, we're going to ask him to go back on the medicine. We're going to get him the help he needs. A week from now, he'll be back to the same lawyer you've been working with. Everything's going to be fine. Just be patient. But that man doesn't just go back on his medicine. He's been very affected by this case. The deeper into it, the like years and years after he's been working on it, he realizes, no, I am defending the bad guys. And I've put so many hours of my life into defending the bad guys. It really sort of breaks him.
Yeah.
And he starts viewing like one of these innocent farm girls whose parents and siblings have died from cancer due to this pesticide. He starts viewing her as this like pure angelic figure. Like, I will do anything to protect her. Like, she is my life's goal now. I'm going to take down this company to save her and to save everybody else. And so Michael Clayton has to kind of clean up after him, kind of chase that, kind of evade the evade the pesticide company who were kind of sending goons out after him. He's also got personal problems with like he's divorced and he sees his son sometimes and he's got this sort of a strained relationship with his son. He's got a very strained relationship with his brother. He tried to open a restaurant with his brother and his brother had drinking problems and the whole thing just like went belly up. And now Michael Clayton is in very deep debt trying to settle all the accounts of that restaurant. So there's a lot going on in the man's life.
Yeah. Like there's never like it. Even almost describing it, it almost feels like, man, this just sounds really boring. Which it's not. Like
it is not. No,
it really is just a fascinating look at this whole situation. Yeah. and it's just packed full of stuff. When discussing Star Wars, one of the things that people always mention is that, like, what made that original trilogy so neat was that everything felt lived in. And
Yeah.
I think that's something I would say about this movie, is that every scene
Yes.
that you get almost feels like you missed the first 2 minutes in the best way
Yeah.
possible. That, like, it gets straight to, like, the meat of what needs to happen in each scene, and so you're just kind of like this fly on the wall for certain scenes that you're just like, man, this is fascinating. What is happening here?
Yeah.
It seems like Michael Clayton almost has some kind of friendship / relationship with the, like, detective on the police force over there.
That's his
that
brother.
Like, not that one, the other one, the, like, chief or whoever.
Huh.
But yes, yeah, he has a brother on the police force too. Just all sorts of stuff. You just get these little small glimpses into these scenes, and I think the movie really treats you. It puts its trust in you that you will kind of piece things together, not in a way that's confusing or like you feel like you're being left behind, but it's smart in, like, what it cuts out
Mhm.
and what it decides to show you.
Yeah.
So yeah. I really enjoyed this a lot.
And I
Good
want to say,
stuff.
just before we go into our housekeeping break, please watch the opening scene of this movie. If you don't know if Michael Clayton is for you, at least start the movie, because this is one of the best openers of
Yeah.
any movie I've seen in a while.
Yep. Absolutely. So with that, yeah, let's take a quick break for housekeeping. And when we come back, we will start diving into the movie a little bit more in depth. And you guys can hear my hot take on Michael Clayton here. So yeah, we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, and we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. This month on the Pilots Club, our Patreon exclusive podcast for those of you at the $3 tier, we took a look back at CSI, the original, the pilot for CSI. Gil Grissom. It was good to see him again solving some cases. That was a fun one to talk about.
Yeah. Very solid. I did really enjoy the CSI pilot, having seen none of CSI before.
Sure. I was thinking about it this week, and I think CSI is the first TV show. I may have seen it in a movie, but the first TV show I ever saw that did the enhance. Like, can you enhance that image? And they just, like, do some magical wizardry on the computer to enhance the image, and that's just totally not how it works at all. But it's so
why
good.
wouldn't it just come enhanced to begin with?
Right. Exactly. So yeah, go check that out. That was a blast. Melissa, what did we do last week here on the review show? Do you want to tell him a little bit about that?
Yes, last week, that would have been our ongoing monthly series watching the entire Fast saga. We covered the fourth, fifth, and sixth Fast and Furious movies. We've been doing those 3 a month. And at the end of March, we're going to talk about 7, 8, and 9. Hobbs and Shaw's on the table too. We both intend to watch Hobbs
Hmm.
and Shaw, but we aren't requiring it of ourselves necessarily. And then we'll be all caught up with the franchise and we'll be ready for Fast 10 later this season.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a
Mhm.
lot of fun to watch the Fast and Furious movies for sure. But yeah, then over on the Captain's Log this week, I had my mind blown. I thought a certain character was a real person. They are not. Perry Mason is not real.
No.
I didn't know that. So yeah, we were talking about some stuff that I had been watching. Just all sorts of stuff over there on the Captain's Log. It's always a good time. Um,
Mhm.
and then on the Whatnauts or Reactor Core, we still have our reactions to The Last of Us going up every week. We are almost done with that. The penultimate one is tonight, the day that we are recording this, and then next week is the finale. But fear not, because if you want more Pedro Pascal, Ignacio and I are planning on doing some reactions to The Mandalorian Season 3. However, we are letting those stack up a bit
Mm.
before we talk about them. So I think we might do it in like 3-episode chunks ish. So yeah, every now and then we'll have that. And then I keep getting us hyped for Yellow Jackets at the end of the month. I'm
Yeah.
super excited about that one. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's kind of about it for housekeeping right now. So I say we get into spoilers. All right. So my first note that I have here
Yes.
in my notes that I took is this is a Kyle ass Kyle movie. I loved this. I really
Good.
did. It's so
You love a
strange.
crime.
I do, but I also wouldn't necessarily say this is a crime movie. Like
Yeah. It's
it
crime
fits in with
adjacent.
that stuff, right? It's yeah, crime adjacent. It's I think at the start you described this as a legal thriller.
That's how Wikipedia describes it.
Okay, well, even that I don't know if that's like the most
Yes.
apt description. Sure, he is a lawyer, but he's not your typical lawyer.
Yeah, there are no courtroom scenes.
Exactly.
There's no I object, Your Honor. Like I said, it's barely twisty and action packed enough to get into thriller territory. It's a much quieter movie. It is about an investigation into a crime, but Michael Clayton is not a detective. Any law enforcement officials are kind of on the fringes of the story. Like, it's not a traditional cop or lawyer story. They're there, but it's mostly about a guy who legally is a lawyer, but is mostly just a fixer, just a cleaner, just a guy who's
Yeah.
there to like either the truth can be adjusted, says the poster. And I watched the
Exactly.
trailer. I watched the trailer last night. Not a
Mhm.
great trailer, but it the video I found is not good quality, even though it was from an official Warner Brothers studio channel. It looks like they just have the version that you would have downloaded in 2007.
You
And they
would
lost the
download a
original
movie
like
trailer.
master trailer for Michael Clayton. But it does say this, like the taglines in the trailer is something like he's spent his career hiding the truth. Now he has to be the one to find it.
Yeah. It's just it has like all the right pieces for me to be interested in this stuff. Yeah, crime adjacent, like legal thriller adjacent. It is a thriller, but it's not like it's not twisty. So yeah, but it just has enough of all of that stuff that I'm like, I like this. I am into this. This is cool.
Mhm.
It's intelligent, it's competent, it's like tightly scripted and paced really well. It yeah, I like it. I feel like it treated me as if I was smart. which there's some
Yes.
movies that absolutely don't do that and hold your hand the entire way and try to explain everything. And this does not. This does not explain stuff, or even in a weird way. I'm often someone who really wants a movie or a TV series to slow down, explore the
Yeah.
world a little bit more, explore the characters, give them these like moments to really flesh out who they are. And in a weird way, this does not have that pacing,
Mhm.
but it does it even still. Like the stuff about his gambling debts in this, you really don't
Mhm.
need to know that for the plot. But it's still such a fascinating look at Michael Clayton and what kind of person he is. Like, they still manage to
Yeah.
have those moments without it feeling like everything has slowed down, or they're kind of taking a detour to go explore some other part of the world.
Mhm.
I was just like, oh, this is great. I love this.
Yeah. I everything does have value. Like the storyline about he has had like a gambling problem in the past that he has worked past. I think at one point he tells somebody like, I haven't been in a poker game in like a year or 2 years
Yeah.
or whatever. Like he is on his way to gambling sobriety as it is. And it's his deal with his brother's restaurant that goes under, and he has to get a loan to like close out all the debts of the restaurant, and that's what puts him in debt, and that's what makes him go back to gambling. Like, what can I do to get the I need $75,000 in a week or something like that, and that gives real stakes to his dealings with his law firm, where they're like, we're going to offer you this new deal where you don't breathe a word of what's been going on to anybody, but also like no action will be taken against you. You'll be safe. You'll be protected. We're going to give you the loan for the money you need, and you stick this out. Like, we're going to give you a promotion, or we're going to give you a raise. Like, you will have something, Michael Clayton, if you stick with us. And knowing that background about the restaurant and everything, like it makes you really empathize with him and understand when he agrees to sign those papers to say,
Yeah.
yes, I'll keep quiet. I won't breathe a word of these crimes to anybody else. What our client has been doing, the proof that Arthur, the other lawyer, has found, saying, yeah, they absolutely knew that pesticide was carcinogenic and they still put it out on the market. Like, he agrees to keep quiet about that on paper to save his ass, to clear out all his debts, to make sure nothing comes against him and his family. And then later you learn he's got that backup plan to still take down that company.
Exactly. Um, yeah. I had a blast with this. Here's my hot take, though.
Okay.
So you pitched this to me for best supporting actress. Tilda Swinton in this is phenomenal. She's always an incredible actress. I've had my mind
Mm.
blown by some of her performances in the past here on this show.
Yes.
And I have to say, I thought she was best supporting actress. She's barely in this.
Well, that's the point. Like, supporting can be any size of performance, from your second or third lead to you truly are coming in for a couple scenes. I think she gives this is an appropriately sized best supporting actress performance. Like, this typically
I
is the
guess,
amount that a person is in the movie.
like, I think I was expecting more, and I was expecting another kind of like mind-blowing performance by her. And
She's secretly another character.
Right. She is Michael Clayton. You thought that was George Clooney? No. No, again, she's great in this. I'm not saying her performance was bad, but I think she was just in the movie so little that she had like, all right, I liked that one scene at the start where she's like practicing her lines. But then besides that, she has the scene at the end when Michael reveals that he's like, hey, I'm having all of you guys arrested for all of that. Like, that's kind of it. And so I was just
There's
being like,
more.
where what are you guys nominating this based on? Like, what?
I'm telling you, as an Oscars nerd, she's in there plenty. This is an appropriate performance
I
level
wanted
for
more.
Best
More
Supporting
Swinton.
Actress.
Give me more
Of
Swinton.
course, of course, we always want more. We want more of the character, and we want her to secretly be playing 2 or 3 other characters. Her character, Karen Crowder, she makes her feel so lived in, like, immediately, to where I think you don't need very much of Karen to really understand her. You see her, like, getting ready for this interview where she's taking over as, like, the head legal counsel for North is the name of this company. She's, like, their head, like, legal representative within the company. She's taking over for a previous boss, and she's sort of giving this interview thing where she talks about where the company is going and what her role is going to be. And you see her, like, meticulously lay out, like, every element of her outfit, her hair, put her earrings on, like, pick out different blouses, and, like, practice the speech over and over and over again, like, focusing on individual lines and phrases, changing the intonation. Like, she's a woman of such precision, but you can see that the precision is driven less by, like, a passion to succeed and more of a fear of failure.
Yep.
Like, she's terrified of what's going to happen if she doesn't pull this off. Oh, the first time you see her, we had to talk about the opening of this movie, which is just
phenomenal.
all these shots of the legal firm, and you don't even recognize, like, that's what it is quite yet. Just all these shots of some office building, dead of night, everything's dark, everything's quiet. You're seeing just, like, a message received button on a phone lighting up. Like, hey, you've got a message, just like in the dead of night. Nobody's there to answer it. Just blink, blink, blinks to nobody. And while you're hearing this monologue from Arthur, and again, this is minute 1. You have no context for anything that's happening. You think it's late at night, everybody's gone home as you go through these different shots of this law firm until you hit on the one conference room where everybody is all hands on deck, frantically rifling through papers, making phone calls. It's just chaos in this one conference room at like 4 a.m. at this law firm. And then when the head boss is like, where's Karen? And then Karen is in the bathroom sweating, just sweating through this pristine blouse, looking so nervous. We see all of this before we see Michael Clayton.
For sure. So I think you hear his name because Arthur is his monologue is him leaving a message for Michael to kind of explain what's happening. Because he knows that, like, well, hey, I just had an episode. They're gonna send the fixer my way, so let me at least just call him and reassure him of like what's happening. But his monologue is this like surreal dream where he's talking about like being reborn and all of this stuff. It's this, it's a weird juxtaposition of this like very real scene of this building and zooming in through the window, and it's an office, but all the desks are empty, which almost also feels surreal, but it's so different from what's like verbally being described in this like dream that Arthur had. And yeah, then once he's done with the monologue, it turns in that room where everyone is, chaos. And then, yeah, the first time you see Tilda Swinton, she's in a bathroom stall. And I have to be honest, I had no idea what she was doing in that stall. It was a little weird to me. It was one of those things of like, is she masturbating? What's happening in here? Like, because she's breathing heavily. Yeah. She's almost having a panic attack.
Yes.
And then you realize, like, she leans over, her arm is up, and then you realize, yeah, she's like sweated out her blouse. But then another thing for me to just like be confused about what's happening is not only does she notice it and touch it, but then starts like put her hand inside, and it was still just this like, what are you doing? It's just a weird introduction to the character. But yeah, it's immediately followed up with her like, okay, compose yourself, practice
Yes.
your lines. Should I
Yes.
say it like this, like that? And so, yeah, I think, like you said, it makes a very clear picture of who she is.
hmm
I mean, she's great in the role, and I think Tilda Swinton is an actress that can make something like that stand out with not
Yeah.
having much to go off of, right? I guess I'm not really sure what was in the script, or like what
hmm
direction she was given, but even if they didn't give her much, I know that she is of a caliber that is just like, all right, yeah,
hmm
cool, I got this, I can make it work. Um, but yeah,
Something really like about Karen's character is that when you find out that, yes, there is a memo from however many years ago when they were developing this one pesticide for these farms that says, yes, this could lead to potentially fatal tissue damage in humans. If like it's used under these circumstances, if it gets into the water, the farm relies on the water for the
mhm,
farmers to drink, etc. Says, yeah, this could happen, but we believe it is not feasible at this time to put further resources into developing an alternative. Like it's going to be more expensive to fix the problem than it is to
it
handle. Mhm.
I was just gonna say it's also like that was just the initial study of like, yeah, we
Yes,
found
yeah.
evidence of this that it could happen. We haven't fully researched this yet, so
Yes,
it is
yes.
that like risk of like, well, it's just an initial report. It could be wrong technically,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, given all the other evidence and all the other like 3 people from one farm, like, have died.
yeah,
Uh, so when she had nothing to do with that. When she gets promoted into this role and she's learning about all that, she realizes it's like her superior's signature on the form, and you can tell she is sort of, like, crestfallen that this man she must have respected did that. But
yeah,
now that she's in his position, she feels she has no choice but to keep pushing forward, like keep hiding it, keep covering it. Like she
hmm,
has those two criminals who she sends to like follow these people, spy on them, tap the phones, like make it look like that guy died in a drug overdose or something, like hide, cover everything. Like she didn't make the initial choice to do this criminal thing, but once she learns about it, she she just gets swept up on it. She doesn't make the choice to turn back and say, "We have to admit what we did. We have to make up for this." She's like, "No, just hide, 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 cover, cover, cover." Which kind of is what you imagine Michael Clayton's job would be if
hmm,
he wasn't in this. Like, you imagine this might be something he has done in the past, but he gets involved enough in the situation that he's like, Arthur was onto something. Like, what? He said he had something that could take down U North. I have to figure out what that is. I want to take down U North now. Like, I'm going to sign the paper that says I'll keep quiet and I'll get the money I need and I can live like a peaceful life away from all this drama. But I have a backup plan. Like, I still want to take this company down. I can have it both ways. I'm Michael Clayton.
yeah. That's I think also maybe the one thing that is I I I don't want to say not as well thought out, but I just like not as explored as I would like it to
Mm.
be is
hmm
like why he finally decides to take you north down. I don't ever like I never really felt like there was a true connection for him to be like, yeah, yeah, down with you north. He just kind of I mean, he's a gambling man, right? He's
hmm
taking these different gambles on these different things, and so I think you can look at it that way, and I think be satisfied of just like, yeah, he's all right. He needs to make a move to get the money to pay off the restaurant. He can do that if he signs the thing with the law firm, but then he has this underhanded thing to like he ends up like respecting Arthur in a way that I don't think he did before. Or, well,
I think
I don't
he's
know.
always
Just
been
like,
respected Arthur, been a friend to him. I think he is
yeah,
very sympathetic and empathetic to the mental conditions that he has. And, well, when you get like this, I know you need some medicine. I know you need to talk to a doctor. Like he doesn't really
Right. Yeah.
vilify the illness. He is always supportive of his friend and of his friend getting better. But yeah, he does get to this point where he's like, I don't think this is any sort of he has some psychological problems, but I think there's a core of truth to what he is saying. Like
Hmm.
his passion for this case comes from somewhere. Like he does realize he's very aware of how bad some of the situations they're in. Like he knows when his law firm is defending a client who, I mean, of course, like legally, everybody gets to be defended. Everybody gets a defense. Somebody has to do it. But he's like, I know this can be really soul destroying to work on a case like that to defend the people who have done these crimes and to spend years of your life on that. Like he's empathetic to that too. And yeah, I think he just hits a turning point where he's like, this really tore my friend's life apart. And
Hmm.
like this was his final act. The final things he was thinking about was, you've done wrong. I need to expose you. And he's like, I'll carry that on.
Yeah. Because I feel like the turn really comes once Arthur dies.
Yeah.
Um, and he's often put into situations that are a mess, right? That's his
Mm.
job. Here's a mess, clean it up. I think the mess
Mm-hmm.
that he is put into is, this friend that he respected just got murdered, finds out about this girl, this young girl, farm girl, who's now in the big city, alone, scared.
Mm.
Like the mom has, or older sister, I'm not sure who,
Yeah. Yeah, because the parents
is
died. She has like a brother who died, and she's like the family member who is representing their farm in court. She's going to those depositions talking about the experiences her family went through after they used that pesticide. And then Arthur like hyper focuses on her and calls her and says, "Come to New York City. Like I've got something that can break this case wide open. Come meet with me."
yeah, and that's when he dies. So she gets there and just has no idea what to do or what's
Yeah.
happening. And so, yeah, I think in a weird way, he's just being like, well, this is a lot more than I expected. Like
Mhm.
I need to figure out a way. Well, I need to fix this. So I'm just like, well, duh, Kyle, he's a fixer. Uh, but I think he was affected by it more than he realizes. And I think, I don't know, because even with the scenes with his kid, it's his brother, right? The one who was the drug addict, alcoholic. I don't remember which
Yeah.
one he is.
Yeah, that there was his brother. He's got the brother he opened the restaurant with, the brother who's the detective. I know he is at least also a sister because he mentions it like as part of his substance abuse problems. The brother like stole a bunch of things from the sister.
Yeah. Um, there's one scene that really stood out to me with all of that stuff, and that was after the brother shows back up again. He's like, "Hey, I'm clean. Like
Mhm.
I'm trying to like fix things and make it right." And after he drives off with his kid, he stops and like has a chat with his kid. He's like, "Hey, that's not gonna be you. Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna turn out like that, and not in a like stern like I will never allow you to do
Yes. Yeah.
drugs way, but in a like, hey, life doesn't always turn out like that for people. You don't have to be scared that that's gonna be you because
Mm.
you can make your own choices. And you now have that kind of as a guiding principle is not the right word, but like in example of like,
Mhm.
hey, if you do make certain choices, that is a way your life can go. But I think he recognized like the emotional toll it was having on his kid, and just being like, hey, like you don't need to get scared about this now. You just need to be smart, make good choices. Like
Mhm.
you can figure this out. Um, and something about that I think was a really powerful
Yeah.
scene about him and just how he feels with all of these situations. I think in the
Mm.
midst of all of the stuff that's happening to Arthur, I think he's kind of going through the same stuff of just being like, hey, I don't have to turn out like that, but I need to make choices here. I need to make smarter, better choices here. What is going to be the thing that helps people instead of
Mhm.
just causing this mess? No offense to Arthur, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where he decides to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna help this girl. I'm gonna help these families. It's just a big company. It's a corporation, right? Let's just
Mhm.
take care of it and fix it.
I really did like the stuff with his family. I think that grounds him a lot. It makes him
Hmm.
feel very relatable. I like the fact that he has like at least 3 siblings. Like to imagine this guy who seems so solitary, to imagine him as one of like a whole gaggle of children, like it makes him feel very relatable. You can wonder if he's like, oh, was he like the oldest? Well, no, the detective looks older than him, but like, how often was he like cleaning things up for his siblings, or how often was he looking up to them and like trying to help them with things? Like you look at that and you wonder like how has Michael Clayton always been Michael Clayton? As this ability and this drive to like clean things up for people, to smooth over bumps, to sort of put people's minds at ease, has that always been there, throughout his whole life as a family man, being a sibling, and then being a husband and a father. And I really like his relationship with his son. I like
Hmm.
when we get to see the son's room, like there's a lot of like close zoom in pan shots of just all the stuff in the son's room, which is like, it's what?
Melissa, I was not expecting to see Ava Unit 2 in Michael
That's
Clayton, but
right.
we got a Neon Genesis Evangelion reference in Michael Clayton that I'm
Yes.
just like,
Yes.
what? What is this?
The kid is such a nerd. I mean, you've got stuff that whether it's specifically in Ava or it's things that look, even if it's not exactly like that, it reminded me of like he's got toys that look like Bionicles. He's
Yeah.
got things that look like it's Magic the Gathering collectibles. He's got a
And
PC
that's,
in his room where he plays these computer games. And this kid is like
yeah,
9. Like
I guess that fits. Yeah, yeah.
when I say he's got a bunch of nerdy stuff, like of course don't mean that as an insult, and I, in fact, mean it as a higher than usual compliment, because all the stuff it seems like this kid is into seems like fairly
Seems
advanced for
neat.
how
Yeah.
young he is. Yeah, he seems really smart. And Michael Clayton goes to like pick him up and take him to school, so they've got like he makes time to spend quality time with his son. And his
Mhm.
son is obsessed with the series of fantasy books, and he's like explaining everything to his dad, like, okay, well, it's this world where it's these different tribes of people and they have these powers and this war is going on and they're in this forest. He lays out the whole mythology, and he's like, Dad, I left a copy of the book like at your apartment, have you read it? And he's like, no, I haven't had time to read it. And it seems like him and his son, like, I think they do love each other. I described it earlier as strained, and I think it's purely circumstantial that it's so strained. Like, he
I
makes
think
time
so.
for
Yeah.
his son. He makes time to see his son, but he has no other spare time to like engage with his son's hobbies. Like, he'll listen to his son, but he doesn't have time to learn like in his after hours, like, what's an Evangelion? I'd better Google that.
Yeah.
So he
Is this
just
some
nods like,
kind of radical church? Evangelical what?
So he just nods like, okay, yeah, it sounds interesting. Like he doesn't have extra resources in his life. He doesn't have the energy to like meet his son at his level. And of course, his son, who's like 9, has like no idea what his dad does all day.
Yeah.
So they see each other, they love each other, but they don't really connect on a lot of things. But during the brief times when you see the son, I really like when Michael's on that business. Michael Clayton. I feel like we can't just call him Michael. Michael
Good old
Clayton's on the
Mikey.
business trip.
They
These like
they
siblings
they
call
call
him
him
Mikey or
Mickey,
Mickey.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is again very endearing to like imagine like strong, strapping George Clooney as like somebody's kid brother who they make fun
Yeah.
of. But like he's on that trip to Wisconsin to where Arthur had that breakdown at the deposition, and the son calls to just sort of say, "Hi, Dad. How's your trip going? This is what I did today." And Michael Clayton is not in the hotel room, so Arthur picks up the phone, and then
I love
Arthur just starts.
this scene. Yeah.
Yeah. So the son is it takes the opportunity. He loves this book. All he wants to talk about is this book. So he's explaining it to Arthur, and Arthur's like in raptured. Like the mythology the kid is explaining to him, like feeds into his psychological issues, and it becomes like this sort of religious experience for him. It feels truly like mythical, where he's like, yes,
it's
this is
relating to
what
his
my journey
experience,
models.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh
And
man,
so,
hero in that book found out some secret and now has to
yeah.
like change the world with it. That's me. I can do that. What's this book's name? Let me go read this.
And then he goes and he gets the book, and the book has got like a red cover. It's a weird looking book in that it's very tall and thin. Like I've got a cocktail recipe book that's that same shape
Sure,
and
yeah.
size. This doesn't seem like a novel's form factor, but it's got like a red cover and like this typeface on the front. And then when Arthur he goes to the coffee shop and orders like 2,500 of these like booklets, these spiral bound booklets full of like the evidence against you, North. And it's so funny when Michael goes there,
the
like
book. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, with like the same red
Breach
cover and
Conquer
everything,
or something like
summons to conquest.
Yeah, summons to
And
conquest.
Michael Clayton like finds the receipt from the copy shop and goes there, and he thinks he's going to pick up some documents. And like it's so funny to me when the kid's like, "We've got a lot more boxes of that thing back here. Are you going to be able to pick them up? We ran out of red paper entirely. I had to make some of them blue." Just the ordeal that those poor people at like the Kinko's had to go through as like a minor footnote in this entire plot is very funny to me.
Yeah.
And going back to the scene in the car where the uncle who's got the substance abuse problems like tries to make amends to Michael, and Michael like, oh, like it hasn't been long enough that Michael's like ready to forgive him yet, ready to believe that he's making real change, and he tells his son, "Don't be scared because I know that isn't going to happen to you." It's a statement of like, you have a stronger character than I know your uncle has. Like I know, and like at that point in the movie, even from just the little bits you've seen, you really believe him. Like they really do establish that son as somebody who seems very intelligent, very thoughtful, very strong-willed. Like you can tell he's upset that his dad sometimes makes time for him, but doesn't make time to like really explore his interests and meet him at his level. Or like one time he picks him up they're going to go to a movie, and instead Michael Clayton has to run all these errands, and he's like, "We're never going to get to the movie, are we?" Like you can tell he's upset, but he doesn't like I think he handles it very maturely. Like he doesn't like throw a fit. Like he doesn't act the way you would imagine like another like 8 or 9-year-old would. Like this kid is smart. He's mature. He does seem like very strong-willed and like very self-assured.
You know who they remind me of?
What?
The kid's name was Jamie, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Jingle All the Way. That's who they remind me of. He's like so into that one like nerdy thing, and the father just doesn't really understand it. Maybe he wants to, but just doesn't have the time. Is working late, all that stuff. Yeah, but he still just like he has a good relationship with his kid. So yeah.
I do really like what they have there. I like what it has and like what its shortcomings are. And yeah, like when Michael Clayton says those words to his son, you've seen enough of the son that you absolutely believe what he's saying. You're like, yeah, Michael Clayton, you're right. Like this seems like a very good kid. He seems like he does have a good path ahead of him. Like it doesn't just feel like a sort of parental platitude. Like it feels absolutely true what he says to his son.
Yeah. I also have to give a shout out to the scene where Arthur does get killed. I really enjoyed that scene. The fixers that North sends to do the deed. It's just like, this is the action that I was on the edge of my seat for. It was how in sync They were just
Yes.
being like, all right, 1, 2, 3, lift. Okay, you turn 1, 2, 3 as they steps, and they had so much precision and practice with all of this stuff. And when they
Mhm.
laid him down in the bathroom, there was just a real small detail of like catching his head like right before it
Yeah.
fell and hit the ground to make sure he laid down softly, even though he's supposed to be dead in a little bit here. They didn't want to like wake him up, right? But
Yeah.
just from all of that, just all the little small details to how fast they can do it. It's just like, this is fascinating to watch. Like, what is happening here? Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene there. That,
That's really chilling just to watch the
oh yeah,
cold, emotionless precision with which they enact this assassination. This death they're trying to cover up as like a drug overdose or a suicide or something, and how they stage the apartment to make it look like that. And it's a nice juxtaposition to Karen, who also carries herself with a lot of precision, but you see her practicing it. You see her being scared of what happens if she doesn't pull this off.
yep,
Juxtaposing it's her two fixers who just, it seems like everything is easy for them. Like they've
yeah,
done this so many times and they operate so much in the shadows that
yeah.
they don't have the sort of
Chilling.
public relations terror that Karen has.
Exactly. Also, Melissa, we have had the large bag of groceries on our bingo list for so long. There's been one or two
Yeah.
instances where I'm like, I think we got it, and when you've been like, no, I think this one without a doubt fits, because usually it's like a tall baguette that is the thing that
Yes.
indicates, right, like what it is. This is just a bag of nothing but baguettes
Right.
in here, right?
This
He
makes
has,
up
like,
for
30
all of
baguettes.
last year. Yeah. Like I just want to see one baguette or like celery stalk sticking out of a
Yeah,
paper bag to prove that there are groceries in the bag. And yeah, it's just nothing but baguettes. I still don't totally understand what he's doing. Like as part of his psychological breakdown,
I
Arthur
get
just
it though.
also has a
Bread is
fixation on
good.
these baguettes. Yeah.
I like, and it's hot too. It's not like he went to like Walmart
Oh
and got the
yeah.
like pre-packaged ones that are there. He went to a bakery and just like, give me all your baguettes.
God, now I
Just
want a
all of them.
baguette.
I just want to buy the store out
Oh
of
my God.
baguettes. Uh,
We gotta have baguette day on the podcast. We'll watch something French. We just both slowly gnaw on our own baguettes as the podcast goes on.
Man, yeah, that was a really funny scene though, when he just has this bag full of baguettes. There's like
Mhm.
30 of them. It's like, what are you doing, Arthur? You
I
got
don't
nothing
know.
else.
I
Because then when they open up his refrigerator, when Michael Clayton goes like in the apartment there, he has like a bottle of champagne and 2
mm,
glasses and something else in there, but it's something like you can't eat that. It's like
a
it's
condiment.
right, yeah. It's
Just
something like
mustard.
that. It's just like, what is he doing with that? And then 30 baguettes.
I I like the touch of the 30 baguettes because it's funny, but it isn't like so preposterous. Like I said, I don't know Arthur's situation very well, but this movie does seem like it's got some respect and empathy for whatever his psychological condition is. And like all of his coworkers are very understanding. Like nobody's ever like, "Oh, Arthur, that kook." Like they feel kind of bad that happened. Like not just, "Oh
Yeah,
no, now our case looks worse." They're like,
I mean
We got to get Arthur back on his feet, not just for the case's sake, but for our friend Arthur's sake."
yeah. I mean it's a high profile case. It's a high pressure
Mm.
job that he had. I think it's pretty safe to say a job like that, I'm sure people suffer panic attacks or
Yeah.
crises all the time there. So I don't think they're unfamiliar, right? With like, even if
Yeah.
he's not someone that has a history of like mental issues or instability, right? Just the idea of someone breaking and just
Mm,
getting to a point where they're just like, that's it, I've had it, like
yeah.
screw this. Um,
And they also established that his wife is dead and he's sort of estranged from his daughter and she's like off living or traveling in Europe. So he really has nothing to bring him home. Like he doesn't
to
have
anchor
any
him, yeah.
reason not to spend like all weekend at the office. And he mentions early on that like one of the big partners there at the law firm came to him celebrating like we've hit 25,000 billable hours on this case or whatever it is. It's some huge number and and they take him out to celebrate and they get him a sex worker and he says like while this lady's going down on him, all he can think about is those numbers and he's doing the math in his head and he's like I've spent like 10% of my life defending this company who I know has done something bad. And like that just shatters him.
Yeah, yeah. Um, he's in the middle of a crisis for sure. But
Mhm. Which I
let's see.
wasn't expecting. Like when last week when I read the like Google result, like basic summary for Michael Clayton, it seemed like when the part like when the lawyer from his firm who's representing this big case suffers a breakdown, Michael Clayton has to step in and then he has to make the choice like, do I do what's right or do I do what's going to get me money to pay off all these debts? Like the fact that somebody had a breakdown and Michael Clayton had to step in was like just it seemed like it was just introductory setup. Like I wasn't expecting us to spend so much time on who was this man? Why
Mhm.
did he break down? How did he break down? What's Michael Clayton going to do about it? Not just as an employer, a fellow employee who has to step in, but like as a friend, like how does he help that man? Like they put a lot on that I was pleasantly surprised by that was such a large aspect of the movie. And again, I was expecting like Michael Clayton goes to court. You see him like sitting on the stone steps outside the courthouse, like fist to his chin, staring out at the skyline, like, what do I do? Do I
Longingly
do what's
looking up
right,
at
Lady
Lady
Liberty?
Justice. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting
Help
this
me,
whole
Matt
like
Murdock.
I wasn't expecting this like shadowy, like just convoluted plot line that it has. Where, like I said, he's barely a lawyer. There's no like courtroom scenes. Just
Yeah.
law exists as like the setting against which all of this happens. Another detail I really like is that Michael Clayton was a very successful lawyer, worked
Mhm.
in like the DA's office, all of this, gets hired onto this firm, and they realize he's so much better at being this sort of under the table fixer that like that's all he does for them. And like he's not a partner. He's been there for 17 years and they talk about he isn't a partner. He's just listed as special counsel. And he talks about how he's like his position is so shadowy and deep background and under the table that he like doesn't really have any clout if he tries to leave and go anywhere else. Because like he hasn't been established as a partner. Like he is not at the level that he should be professionally by
Mhm.
that time in his life. They've just been having him do like all this secret background grunt work that's like not adding up to anything that looks good on a resume. And that's why he started that restaurant with his brother because he's like, I need a backup plan. If one day I just get burnt out and just can't do this anymore, I need something else that I can go do. And then that like goes belly up in his face. And then he has to resolve that while still doing all the secret background grunt work for this law firm. And I like that that's one of the things he brings up to them. Like, I, you guys have kind of trapped me here. Like, I
Mhm.
can't go anywhere else because I don't have anything professionally to show for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Something else that I wanted to talk about with this is, despite Tilda Swinton being in there as the best supporting actress, um, this movie unfortunately did kind of feel like a boys' club.
Hmm.
There's not many women in this, and when you do see them, they're not there for very long.
Mhm.
Just something I noticed with
Yeah.
watching it. I don't really have much else to say on it than
Yeah.
I noticed. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I still really enjoyed this a lot. What was interesting to me is so at the start of the podcast, I mentioned that a number of podcasts that I listened to
Yes.
was mentioning this. I finally figured out why this was a thing, why people were mentioning this movie of Michael Clayton in recent months. It's
Mm.
by Tony Gilroy, who also recently did Star Wars Andor.
Yes.
And I was like, that's it. That's why they're
Yes.
talking
You've made the connection.
about this. Yeah, I just didn't put it together months ago when they were talking a bit about it. But we finally watched Michael Clayton, and I'm glad we did. It was good
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
know this was Tony Gilroy's, like, he'd been a writer for some time. He wrote all the Bourne movies,
Yeah,
which
that
I
too,
didn't know.
which is
I don't think
also fantastic.
I didn't realize those were all written by the same person. I've seen, as much as I love James Bond and Mission Impossible and all these, I saw like the Firstborn once. Like that's like the last
We'll have to go
bastion
back
of
and
like
do
big,
those because they're
like
good.
big espionage action franchises I don't know anything about. Eventually, I'll have to watch all the Bournes. But yeah, this was his directorial debut. I think it's pretty strong. I like that the movie is relatively small. I think it doesn't try to do too much for a
Yeah,
directorial debut. Like like I there truly is something I think is a benefit of this movie, that we don't have these like giant like dramatic courtroom scenes. It's all very small and very quiet. It's like people looking at a piece of paper and signing a different piece of paper that are like the most dramatic turns in the movie.
yeah.
A little boy talks about a fantasy novel for 10 minutes. This is what's important in Michael Clayton. He has to go
Yeah.
to his dad's birthday party.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Uh, another like scene that really stood out to me was the horses. When
Yeah.
Michael Clayton gets out of his car and sees these three horses kind of up on this hill, and he walks up to them, and they're a little bit spooked, a little bit startled, and he kind of calms them down. He's sitting there. What was that?
Okay.
What was the significance of that scene?
The horses are in that fantasy novel. Like his son left a copy of that book at his apartment. He goes home, like finally at one point deep into the movie, like buried under all his mail he doesn't have time to look at. He sees that book and he flips through it. And that's one of the illustrations is like some horses on a hill.
Mm,
And so when he's driving home from that one sort of example gig he has at the beginning of the movie to sort of smooth over one of his firm's clients, like had a hit and run in the middle of the night.
yeah.
Like like one of his coworkers calls him in, like, one of our top clients just hit a guy, like go over to his house, do what you can do. And he goes over there and it's sort of an interesting case where there's not really much he can do, or like he sets the guy up with other resources and the guy's like, aren't you going to help me? And he's like, oh, I'm not a trial lawyer. That's not what I do. I'm here to do this. And then he's driving home, and at this point it's like barely dawn. It's like 5 in the morning. Like there's just like a little bit of sunlight cresting over the hill. He's in like upstate New York where there is more countryside, and he just sees these
Hmm.
3 horses standing like silhouetted against the dawn sky on top of this hill. And at first you're like, oh, that's just a beautiful kind of striking image. I can tell that this man's life is chaotic, this early, like 10, 15 minutes into the movie. He gets out, he goes to approach the horses. I saw them as just like, this must represent like peace to him or something, peace or wonder, or just like a connection with the natural world he doesn't have anymore. And then as he's up on the hill, like kind of trying to pet the horses, like his car
Oh,
explodes. And then it's like cut to white screen 4 days earlier. Like that's how
yeah.
this movie starts. I'm like, wow, what kind of ride are we going to be on?
It's a great scene.
And then I love a movie that shows you stuff and then doesn't contextualize it for you until much later. I love whenever any story does that. you see that that's an image from the book, and kid's been talking about this book. Arthur's been talking about this book, like convinced like this is real world mythology. He is part of the myth. The myth is
Mhm.
him and this North case and everything. So Michael sees the horses and he's like, I it's like an omen for him. He's like, am I on the right
I will
path? Am I
become a
doing the right
horse.
thing?
I am horseman.
It reminded me of the end of Fantastic Mr. Fox when he when he sees the wolf in the distance and him and the wolf just like fist pump at each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That scene was interesting to me because when you first see
Another
that
George
scene,
Clooney. He is
yep,
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
he sure
Twice. At least twice in movies, he has seen an animal from far away and had a connection with that animal.
Well, so that scene for me was interesting because when you first see it, yeah, you're not really given context about like why he stopped or stuff like that because you don't see that illustration in the book until later on in the movie. But that's also something that I didn't catch. I didn't catch that picture being in the book and making that kind of connection. I think there was a line in here. It may have been when he was talking to the dude at the restaurant and them just being like, well, what are you going to do after this? Or once you get done with all of this, that I think he had a line about being like, I would love to just have a farm and go somewhere. And so I think like, I'm wondering if him just seeing these three horses out in the middle of nowhere was just this like, you know what, let me just stop for a second. This is something I love. This is a dream of mine that I've always wanted. Let me just go stop and pet the horses, right? Because why not? And then all of his stuff blows up, literally.
Horsey.
Yeah. But I also, it was an interesting scene for me because again, I'm trying to put details together in my head. I don't know if I'm remembering these correctly. It also may not have been Michael who said something about the farm. It may have been Arthur who said something that he had one, or he used to live on one or something, or that's where he would like, why don't you go retire to your farm or something like that. For a while, watching this movie, I was still kind of trying to figure out what was going to happen, if there would be some kind of twist or something like that. And when we get the opening scene of that one dude that had the hit and run, like, I hit someone, what are you gonna do about it? And then immediately afterwards, we're shown this character who has a psychotic break. I was like, what if that's the guy he hit? Like, what if Arthur's now dead?
Oh, yes.
And like hit him somehow. And yeah, so like I was trying to put all that together. It's not what happened at all. But yeah, that was just, it's an interesting structure of the story of how to, because it really does start getting your brain working and being like, what's happening here? Why did Michael get called in if he's not the right guy for the job here? What does he do? Why did he stop? What was that explosion? What is happening here? Right? It's just, it's nonstop just being like, whoa, what this is wild. What is going on? Where am I?
It's so funny to describe this movie as nonstop when it's just sort of quiet adult conversations.
It really is. Yeah.
I think this truly represents age and maturity for us as like 32-year-olds, that we're looking at this fairly dry legal drama like we are on the edge of our seats.
It was great. I loved it. Yeah, besides that though, I don't know if I have too much else to say. Do you have something else?
I want to talk about the final scene where after he approaches Karen outside, she's at like there's some big conference meeting of like all the shareholders or like all the board of directors of North, and she's giving him this deal where it's like, it is time for us to just settle out of court. Because if we pay something now, that's good. She's like already scared, like this information's going to get out. We're going to have to pay up big time. Let's settle out of court now, end the thing, and this is going to be cheaper if we do it now. So she's like proposing all this to the board of directors. Then she like steps outside while they deliberate, and Michael's waiting for her. Michael Clayton is the full name. Michael Joseph Clayton.
Michael, like, back from the dead Clayton.
He like offers her this deal, like, I know what you're up to. I need you to pay me off. I need like $10 million. She's like, yes, whatever you need. Like, she's so scared about anything getting out about what's happened and what she's covered up. And then he's just secretly been like recording this. And then his detective brother steps out like, aha, it's us, the police. We caught you, which is satisfying, even
Thanks,
though it is
rather
it is rather simplistic that he's just like, I was secretly recording you. Like, it's not particularly inventive or clever or I used this one legal loophole and I caught you. It's just I turned on like the recorder on my phone.
Yeah.
But it's still a powerful moment. He shouts, I am Shiva, god of death at her. I love that. And then he gets in a cab, and the final shot of the movie is just him kind of at rest, knowing a job well done has been done in the back of this cab. And I don't even know where he's going. Maybe he's going to go see his son or whatever.
He has no goal. He found the like coupon for the taxi service or something in the book, and he hands that to the guy, and he says, "Give me $50 worth." And he was like, "Where to?" He's like, "Just go."
Oh yeah, he's like, "Yeah, just go. I just need to get away from this. I just need to escape." Michael Clayton. And then it says Michael Clayton, directed and written by Tony Gilroy. The entire like before like the big black and white scroll of the credits, it's just holding on George Clooney's face as he takes a cab ride. I love it.
Yeah, this was a great one. I'm glad you reminded me of this, because I also loved this last scene here as the credits are rolling. It almost felt like Inception to me, the like spinning top at the end, and you're just waiting for it to wobble or something, right? And it because it stays on his face. And Clooney does like some incredible acting just in this one scene where he does nothing.
He was nominated. To talk briefly about, Tilda Swinton won, but the other nominations the movie got were Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Score for James Newton Howard, Best Original Screenplay, Best Actor for Clooney, and Best Supporting Actor for Tom Wilkinson as Arthur.
Yeah. But yeah, like the camera's just sitting on him, and it's some incredible acting by him when he's just doing nothing. Like he's just sitting there. He's expressionless. He's not smiling. He's not just like, oh God, sigh of relief. Like now I can go read that book my kid keeps whining about. And all, what the fuck is neon evangelical? God. Let me fix that. Like he's just sitting there expressionless, but not in a like cold, unfeeling way. Like I'm trying to read into it to be like, is he almost smirking? Does he feel good? Does he feel a sense of relief? Like I'm still just like trying to be like, give me something else. Like, what is happening here? What's going on in this scene? Even though nothing is happening, which is wild. I was just like, oh, it's so good.
And that is satisfying to see Michael Clayton just not doing anything. Like he has earned these couple minutes of just rest, of not even peace, but just neutrality.
Yep.
He just gets to be nothing and let somebody drive him around for 15 minutes. In that way, it is a very satisfying ending. And it's the ending was so funny to me because last year there was a horror movie called Pearl that ended that same way, with just, of course, in a much more intense manner, just like holding on the lead actress's face. It's just Mia Goth staring straight at you through the entire run of the end credits, growing increasingly more uncomfortable. It holds on her for like 10 solid minutes. Pearl is a prequel to the movie X. Kyle, I need you to watch both of
You've
them. I've told you.
mentioned them. Yes, I am familiar
I've told you
with
before.
them.
You need to watch X.
Yeah, I have that, and then that Sunshine movie, right? Is that what it's called?
Sunshine.
Yeah.
Sunshine.
You
Yes.
need to watch that one too. So yeah. All right, let me see here. I have bingo pulled up and ready to go. If we want to move on to that. Let's see here. I can pull it up on screen. Everyone can see. Okay, still no bingos yet. Melissa, you're getting close.
Yeah.
I'm not as close. Still have things a little bit scattered, but let's see here. Unfortunately, no courtroom scene.
Yeah. We just have depositions. Like there's not a judge anywhere. Nobody has a gavel.
Yep. Not really a magic book. No death by electrocution.
Kyle, I would kind of count this for magic book. It's not literally magic, but the fact that that Arthur looks at it and believes that it is this like religious tome of truths of prophecy, I would give you magic book.
Yeah,
especially because
that's a good argument. I think I was thinking of it more of like, this is a book of spells.
Right. This is the Darkhold. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
that's a good argument,
if this was happening in a story that had some actual magic in it, whether it was magic realism or it was a fantasy or sci-fi book, maybe not. But the fact that this is happening in a legal thriller or a fantasy novel that one of the characters believes is true is a major plot point.
Yep.
Like that makes it so magical in its context.
All right. Yeah, I'll do that. I think that is a good argument for why this book was magical.
I don't think we got a foe waiting in shadows to talk. And did we have a conspiracy board? Did Arthur have a full-on conspiracy board going?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything then.
I don't think so. More lawyers are more like, here's boxes of
right.
documents.
We don't have a truth box.
We almost got cow. Instead, we got horses. I could have had
3 horses don't equal 1 cow.
Yeah. If Michael Clayton was waiting in the shadows at the end there, we could have counted that, but I don't feel like it's in, like, it's, that's a tough one, because that's like almost the scene. It's just not the, like, if that was like in her apartment, right, or her hotel room, and he's waiting there, I think we could have counted that, but he's in a big public space, right, in this like convention center or wherever they are. But yeah, almost. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything else besides that. So, oh well. Well, there you go. That is our bingo update for Michael Clayton. And that's about that. Melissa, let's move on to recommendations. If people liked this, what else might they enjoy?
The opening scene of this movie where you're just seeing that office building in darkness in like the middle of the night being very empty. That's a lot like the climax to the movie Collateral. Do you know Collateral?
I remember it. I think I've seen it, but I don't remember.
Michael Mann's Collateral, where Jamie Foxx plays a cab driver in LA and Tom Cruise gets in. And it turns out Tom Cruise is an assassin.
I haven't seen that one.
And he just sort of commandeers, just sort of takes Jamie Foxx hostage. Like, you're going to drive me around to all these assassination missions I have to do today. And at the beginning of the movie, Jada Pinkett Smith got into Jamie Foxx's cab. She's a lawyer. They kind of had a flirtation. She left her business card. And at some point in the night, he calls her and Tom Cruise ends up going there, like trying to target her, trying to kill her, I think. But like she's working on some huge case, like it's the middle of the night. She's there in like the firm's like law library. There's like hardly anyone else around. And that's where they have this big final action scene. Is this like deserted law firm in the middle of the night. So if you want that very specific scenario again, watch Michael Mann's Collateral.
There you go.
Uh I know largely his debts did not come from gambling. He'd resolved his gambling issues mostly and was only returning to them as a last ditch effort to try and get that money.
Mhm.
But you throw anything with like I've got debts to pay, I'm playing all these cards, I have a lot of irons in the fire. I'm gonna have to recommend Uncut Gems, a personal
Yes.
favorite. I
Yep.
love the
That
chaos of
was
Uncut Gems.
gonna be on my list of
Mhm.
recommendations. He's not. I mean, he's kind of making a deal in this one, but it's that like tense nature of like, all right, I'm in a situation and I need all the parts to like fit
Yeah.
in this puzzle of I need to make a deal or I need to fix it or I need to do. Yeah, that's a great one for sure.
I would also finally recommend the George Clooney movie Up in the Air, which
Okay.
came out in I think 2009 or 2010. And he plays a man who's like a professional sort of liaison for companies. If you're like a huge like high power company, you need to fire some high power person in a
Mhm.
situation that's possibly going to be like very sensitive or very inflammatory. You hire George Clooney and he will handle that for you. It's kind of a Michael Clayton like character, but he has to be a lot more of like a charismatic, like smooth talker, soft skills guy just to sort of cushion the blow when companies need to deliver very bad news.
Sure.
And he has to fly all around the country, all around the world doing this job. And the movie is called Up in the Air because he's spending all his time on these flights and he's getting close to this like platinum membership. And he's like, only like 12 people in the world have flown as much as I've flown with this airline. Like, I'm almost there. And you see him go home to his apartment. His apartment is empty. There's nothing there. He's got the like one mustard in the fridge and like a can of beer, you know.
Yeah.
Like his personal life is just empty. He lives for this job. He lives for the thrill of chasing the incredibly exclusive platinum membership. This movie is notable to me because one of the airports he flies through is Lambert International Airport in my own St. Louis. They filmed in St. Louis, and for those couple weeks in 2009, it was like you were hearing about possible Clooney sightings from like your friend's brother's girlfriend's aunt who works at a bar near the airport. Like we were truly a hubbub with possible cryptid sightings of George Clooney.
There you go. There you go.
So I've got a personal fondness for that movie. I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters like 13 years ago, but I remember it being pretty good. I'd like to watch it again.
Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. I think I would also add in a completely different occupation, but The Bear on on Hulu. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's about these brothers. One of them passes away, and then the next brother has to kind of step up and take over the restaurant that they all worked at, but they are just struggling. And it's that same like hecticness of Uncut Gems of just like we have this many orders that we need to get done, like all
yeah.
of this stuff, and it takes place in the back of a kitchen, and there's drama and all that stuff. I've seen most of the show. I haven't seen all of it. I've actually seen the like second half of the show. It was
Mhm.
phenomenal. I've seen the end. Great stuff. I don't feel like I need to go back and watch the start to understand what
Mm.
happened, but which is, I guess, a good thing that it did a good job of like cluing me in, even though I like jumped in halfway because my partner was watching it. But yeah, that was phenomenal. If you like just the tension and chaos of jobs like that, I think this is one to check out and has a very good story too.
Nice. I do like tales of professional chaos. I
Yes.
just want to see a real rowdy movie where I learn about how another profession goes. Like learning about the jewelry business and uncut gems.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'd put that stuff on there. If you guys haven't seen the Bourne movies, go check those out. I
Mhm.
know. Um, I think the Jeremy Renner one was not super
Yes.
well received as it came out. In a similar way to how Tokyo Drift was not well received when it came
Mm.
out because it left the original characters and
Yeah.
everyone was like, "We want the original characters back." But I've heard some people be like, "Hey, actually, that one is pretty good too. It's just, yeah, it's new
Hmm.
characters and stuff like that." Um, but the Bourne movies are fantastic. I did really, really enjoy Andor this last year. That is now up there and as one of my favorite television
Mm.
series of all time. I think it treats your audience, treats you watching the show just as smart as this Michael Clayton movie does. It shows you exactly what it needs to show you. All of the like because I mean it's a Star Wars show, so it's about rebellion and fighting the Empire and stuff like that in a way that other Star Wars shows like haven't been as explicit about. Like
Mm.
this is just on another level, and the history that it pulls in from the stuff that they are doing to the locations that they are filming in and stuff that like it's all places that are rooted in rebellion and fighting against oppression and stuff like that. It's neat. There's just a rich history there, and yeah, Tony Gilroy did some amazing stuff with that. So yeah,
Nice.
those would be my recommendations. Go check those out. Go check those out. Well, that being said, Melissa, I have my pitches ready for next week.
Awesome.
I mentioned to you while we did the little housekeeping thing that I actually had a hard time trying to decide what I wanted to pitch. I have so
Mm.
many like different themes in the works, or like I want to do this, or I could do that
Yeah.
one, but maybe I'll save it for a couple months down the road and this and that. So I ended up back on some comics.
Okay.
And these are all comics for recent or upcoming superhero projects.
Okay.
So pitch number one is the astonishing Ant-Man. This is written by Nick Spencer. And there is a complete collection available on Comixology Unlimited that bundles it all up into one nice big package. I think if I'm not mistaken here, there's there's about 18 issues of that because they do like a 1 through 5 like mini
Mm.
series, an annual, and then like an extra thing, and then the main like 1 through 13 series
Okay.
here on that. So it's maybe a little bit bigger than we normally read, but that's the entirety of the
Okay.
series. Um, and this is the astonishing Ant-Man by Nick Spencer. And it says one tiny hero, one giant action-packed book. Scott Lang was a down on his luck divorced ex-con until he stole Hank Pym's prized or size-changing suit to save his daughter. Since then, Scott's life has been a roller coaster. But will he continue to be a hero or return to his former life of crime? Perhaps both. Scott has his hands full with a new business, some questionable employees, and a teenage daughter who was once an Avenger herself. Then there are villains like the Power Broker and Scott's arch
Mm.
enemy Darren Cross, plus the female Beetle. Will she be friend, foe, or something else entirely? Whatever happens, there are many trials in store as Nick Spencer's entire Fast, Furious, and Fun Ant-Man run is collected between 2 covers.
Okay.
There you go. Pitch number 1. Pitch number 2, Shazam and the 7 Magic Lands. This is also available on Comixology Unlimited, and this collects issues 1 through 12 of the thing here.
Okay.
It says, in these stories, after a stop at the mysterious subway location of the Rock of Eternity, source of his mighty powers, Shazam and his foster siblings take a trip to a series of magical lands, and including the Fun Lands and the Wanzerderland. I don't know if I said that right, but these dreamlike fantasy worlds hide a nightmarish reality as the young heroes must face the tyrannical King Kid and try to avoid being fed to hungry tigers.
I'm just picturing King Bob from Recess, the 6th grader who sits on top of the jungle gym.
I'm King Kid. Yeah, I've not read very much Shazam comics. Back when DC did their New 52 initiative, there was some Shazam backup stories in the Justice League book, and those were written by Jeff Johns. This book here is also written by Jeff Johns and is kind of a continuation of that. However, the first Jeff Johns book that I mentioned is basically just the origin story. So I felt we could kind of just skip the origin story and go straight to let's just go on an adventure with Shazam.
Yeah.
Especially since Jeff Johns' origin story was kind of more in line with the movie. A little bit.
Okay.
It was more of an update on things. So yeah, Shazam and the 7 Magic Lands 12-issue series. That's pitch number 2. And last but not least, this is called Blue and Gold from DC Comics. This is about Blue Beetle and Booster Gold here. It says, desperate to regain the spotlight, Booster Gold looks to attract the public's and the Justice League's attention the same way any washed-up second-rate hero would. Social media. The not-so-tech-savvy hero from the 25th century enlists the help of his best friend, Blue Beetle, who possesses both the money and the brains to help his old pal navigate the scary world of internet influencers. Watch out, evil doers. Our heroes are live and online. But little do they know, an alien assassin seeking revenge places Blue and Gold in their crosshairs. The Omnizon never misses. Don't miss Dan Jurgen's triumphant return to Booster Gold with the help of all-star artist Ryan Sook, telling a tale filled with heart and maybe even redemption for DC's 2 favorite underdogs. This collects Blue and Gold 1 through 8. And while this is not available on Comixology Unlimited, you can buy it on Comixology, and it is, of course, available on the DC Infinite app if you want to read it there. So, yeah. Good stuff. So, pitch number 1, The Astonishing Ant-Man. Pitch number 2, Shazam and the 7 Magic Lands. Pitch number 3, Blue and Gold.
These are interesting. I would have picked Ant-Man, but it's a little long for us to read in a whole week.
Sure.
Maybe if this was like a 2-week span, I could have tackled it. Blue and Gold, I'm kind of intrigued by. Maybe throw that one back on the pile, like when Blue Beetle comes out later this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Shazam. I love the idea of going to 7 different magical lands with my time this week. I'd love to take those trips, have a little vacation, go to 7 magic lands, see whoever King Kid is.
Yeah, right. And if he sits on top of some kind of jungle gym like structure. Yeah, this will be good. And I think this is an opportune time to pick this one.
Yeah.
Because the next Shazam movie is out, I think, on the 17th. So
yes.
Just
in time.
Our episode on this will come out just before the movie. So yeah, good stuff. I'm excited to jump into some Shazam comics. Should be good. Catch up with old Captain Marvel here. So yeah, there you go. Once again, this is available on Comixology Unlimited if you have a subscription to that. You can also buy it on Comixology as well, or your local comic book store, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, this will be an interesting and fun one.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So now that that's been decided, I think that's kind of about it for our podcast for this week. So, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kid shows you feel like only you remember.
There you go. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer. If you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. And of course, if you guys are watching the YouTube version of this, we got some more videos right over there. Go check out one of those. That would help us out a ton. But yeah, this has been number 244 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.